I'm Jason Cook. With over 20 years of experience as a professional trainer, coach, and clinician in the equine industry, I've had the privilege of dedicating thousands of hours to perfecting my craft. Now I'm excited to share my expertise with you through this podcast. We will explore some of my past experiences as well as those of other individuals to provide you with a wealth of knowledge and insights to enhance your journey. Whether you are a novice or an experienced horseman, this podcast will offer valuable perspectives to help you achieve success. All right. Today I have Fred Berschauer here. I've been wanting to interview him for a while. I've known Fred for a while, but I haven't ever had a sit down with him. Don't know much about his past, don't know his story or anything. So we're going to sit down here. We're going to start from the beginning and see what we can learn about him. We were at the ABRA World Show here in Tulsa, Oklahoma for this week. Fred showed in the reining yesterday, and what'd you get done in the reining, Fred?
We ended up in buckskin bred. We were world champion on my little Gypsy Outlaw 4-year-old filly, and then we were reserve world champion in the junior ranch reining on shooting for Jaeger 4-year-old stallion out of Jake's Jackspin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked like you had some really good runs. We got through the first day, and then do you show tomorrow?
Yeah, I will show in the ranch riding, both the bred and the junior ranch tomorrow, and then like ranch pleasure tomorrow, and then we'll show in the ranch horse challenge tomorrow evening.
Oh, tomorrow evening.
Yes.
What's that consist of? I haven't looked at it.
I think it's open to all horses and riders, and it's a kind of a complex ranch riding pattern. So a lot of maneuvers and transitions, and so.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's get started. Like, I have no idea where you're from originally or anything. And I like to keep it that way. And I want to know kind of where it all started for you, all the way back to, where you were born and raised, and from there to if you kind of come about this on your own or if you work for any trainers, and what your journey looked like. So where did it all start at?
Started off in Wichita, Kansas. Was born in Wichita, and then we lived there till in the city, I guess, till we moved to Valley Center, Kansas, 100 Hillside and 101st Street. And we got I think my sister kind of got started in the Appaloosas, and I think when I was 9 years old, I had a rope in my hand and ran around, roped anything that I could, and really didn't have that much interest in my horse and horses till I turned 9. And then I got interested since I was roping all the time. I thought, well, I need to ride a horse.
Uh-huh.
But my folks wouldn't let me rope. They said, you got to learn how to ride. So they made me, we showed apps. So, but I had to learn all the horsemanship and showmanship and all that.
Back then you showing everything.
Everything, and the app deal you showed the showmanship. They had the boys' showmanship. They didn't let you show against the girls, which I thought, there were so many at that time in the youth that when you went to the world shows or the nationals, it was split girls and boys, and they had 30 or 40 of each. The youth program was really big, and we showed the horsemanship, the bareback riding, the breakaway roping, reining, poles, barrels, flags. We showed everything, and we only had one horse to do it on.
Yeah. So, and you went to school there. Did you play any sports or anything?
So we lived in Valley Center, Kansas, and we're a Catholic family. And my folks, we went to public school up till 9th grade, and then my mom wanted us to go to a parochial school, so we lived north of Wichita. And we got accepted to Bishop Carroll High School, which was on the east side or west side of Wichita. It was we were 14. I was 14 years old and we were a rural family. And I drove, I think it was 30 or 40 minutes to school every morning because it was a pretty good drive. And 14 years old, and me and my twin sister, we rode together. Okay, and it rained, snow, or whatever. It was a big thing. And we went from our freshman year to our senior year at Bishop Carroll High School.
Okay. All right. And so when you went to, you said you showed and everything. So who was guiding you guys, or was it kind of trial by fire, or did you guys have anybody you worked with, or how'd that work?
Yeah. So, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a paint contractor, and you kind of just 4-H family, you know, started off in the 4-H deal and, you know, progressed to the Appaloosa deal. And we only had really at that time, we had one trainer friend, and his name was Theron Compton. It was Troy Compton's father. And Troy Compton's a well-known pleasure horse trainer now. And Theron was on 81 Highway. He rode everything. And that's who we started learning with when we were young. Uh-huh. And then he passed away, and we kind of did everything on our own. We went to the horse shows, you know, and just showed at your local shows in the Appaloosa deal. We didn't have a trainer. And then I started riding with Chet Bennett from Cherryville, Kansas, and he was an Appaloosa trainer. And I call him my horse show dad. Mm-hmm. And my folks would take me down there in the summer and drop me off with my horse and my bag and my ropes, and I would just stay with him. And I learned how to rope calves and team rope and just learn what I could from him. And he's 82 or 83 now. He's lived in Arizona and then moved to Arizona, and they lived out in Scottsdale, and then they moved to California for a few years, and then they moved back to Independence, Kansas. And I call him my horse show dad, and I still go over and see him all the time, and I still call him dad. Yeah. And he was a big influence in my life with the horses. And I would go to the app as I got older. And I say older, I was probably 14 or 15 years old, and we lived on the north side of Wichita, Valley Center. And Chet would call in the morning and said he was leaving Cherryville, and I'd get my bag, I'd kind of figure out, and I'd get my horse and my bag and my saddle, and I'd sit out by the end of the road. Mm-hmm. And he would come by, and we'd load my horse up, and we'd go to Grand Island, Nebraska to the app show, and I would head and heel for all the professionals. Mm-hmm. And then I'd got to show my horse, and he would take care of me over the weekend. We did this over quite a few years, and it was quite the part of my life to make a trainer, you know. Uh-huh. That's what I knew I wanted to do. Oh,
so you knew from an early on?
I knew that's all I ever, whole time I was showing in the youth and stuff, and we traveled all over as youth. We went to all the app nationals for I don't know how many years and traveled. And I just knew when I started showing horses, that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a horse trainer. There was no question about it.
So after high school, college? No college?
No, I went so I got accepted into Lamar Community College in Lamar, Colorado, and I did their program. And I went out there, and I wasn't really good in the class stuff in high school, just did enough to get by. And kind of when I got out there, first semester, I think everybody kind of goes, you kind of goof off and think, you know, you're free. And and then grades come in, and you're like, well, that school was very strict. If you didn't get like I think it was 3.4 average, grade average, if you dropped below that, kick you out. There was no question involved. So I got on suspension after the first semester, and my dad, you know, he was flipping the bill for that. And like I said, we didn't have a lot of money, and it was a lot for him to send me to college. And so I found every girl that I could tutor me, and I sat down and got to work and brought it up to my grade point average up, and I stayed hooked. And I probably did better out there in college than I ever did in high school, but I had incentive because I wanted to be a horse trainer. And I think it was more structural for me. I learned a lot in that little college. I think the horseshoeing, I mean, they had horseshoeing all the semesters, and I did the horseshoeing, and then, you know, feed rations and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff, the riding part, I didn't feel like was all that beneficial, but it was structure, and it was learning and always being around different information you learn. And it was a good 2 years. I crammed 3.5 years into associated art degree and a business degree in 3.5 years. So I went for 2 years, but I went straight school for 3.5 years.
Year round.
Yeah, I just
summer.
stuck it out and tried to get 4 years crammed into 2.
And still riding through this time?
I kept a couple horses on the side. I was, early 20s, and I kept 1 or 2 there, leased stalls, and I rode race horses. Yeah, I was a little tall, but I was real skinny and didn't weigh much, and there was a big race outfit there. I'm trying to think the name of it, just at Wiley, Colorado, and a really well-known trainer. And they had 40 or 50 2-year-olds every year. So we would go out, me and another kid, we'd go out and we'd start all them 2-year-olds every year. And it was pretty different because they didn't want a whole lot done. We just kind of had to get them, and we drove them. Mm-hmm. We had a little square pin, and we drove them both directions, and we saddled them with stock saddles, and we could get on and pull them left and right, and we did line drive them, got some stuff around, and then we got on and pulled them left and right, and we opened that gate up, and it was set up in the middle of a milo field, this big farm was, and we would ride them things, take them out, open the gate, and we would just go. And we just got them going through them stocks, and they got kind of gentled down. And as long as you didn't pull on their head and you let them go, they'd never buck you off. But as soon as you had one that thought they were going to buck you, pull on their head, they'd probably buck you off. But you kind of learned really fast, just let them run off for a little ways.
Yeah.
And you could kind of pull them left and right. And then there was nowhere to go. I mean, it was 2 or 3 miles. So they could run quite a ways for you.
These are quarters.
They were thoroughbreds and quarters.
Oh, both.
So and I found out really fast there's a big difference between training a thoroughbred and there is a quarter horse.
Okay, tell me about that.
Thoroughbreds, I always put them off. They're more like want to train them kind of like a mule because they don't forget, and you sure don't want to hurt them.
Okay.
The 2 things I learned: you just didn't want to, put enough hurt on them or something that they got hurt because they would remind. It's kind of like a mule. I haven't trained a lot of mules, but I know how mules are and how they think, and I think there's a lot of similarities there. And you can't hobble. I found out really fast. A thoroughbred can travel about as fast in a set of hobbles without it hobbles. They just don't take that very good. And so, and they're a little slower minded, I think. They're, like I said, there's just, you kind of babied them around and a little softer with them, and you got a lot further. You sure didn't want to cowboy them.
Right.
But that way.
So you guys just basically swung the gate and let them go and get them loosely broke left and right, G and haw.
Yeah.
And so what did it look like on the stopping? What did they require? What did they want and didn't want on the stopping on those?
So you never wanted I would say, you wouldn't want one if you said, whoa, them stick their butt in the ground.
Right.
You kind of want them a transition down. And, you learned how to ride. You pushed them up in the brow, so you're always riding two-handed, and you actually lock your hands behind the crest of the break of the withers into the neck, and that's how you and that's how a jockey. If you ever watch a jockey ride, if they're breaking them down, their hands slide back, and they hold them right there, and they kind of get them broke a little bit in the pole, and then when their hands come up, it's just basically forward, and then when you pull your hands back, you get a little backwards downward trend.
More of a shift down.
Yeah. So you sure didn't, because when you rode them in a flat seat, you just, there's not a whole lot there.
I don't know much about racehorses. Carrie's mom was a female jockey in Wisconsin growing up. First female jockey, I guess.
Wow.
But I've never got to quiz her a whole lot on it. Yeah. She still has her old attire, but I didn't know what they required and how they liked those horses started. I had heard some people mention that they taught them to actually push into the bed.
Exactly.
And that's what they do. Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying, where you hold them in that, and you can kind of get your hands behind that crest and neck, and you push them up, and you kind of want them things on the bit.
Pushing on it. Yeah.
Push them.
I see.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
that was a good job for college kids.
Yeah.
We got paid by the head, so we got like $10. I think it was $10 or $15 a head.
Never broke day.
We
again.
were never broke. I tell you, we had a lot of beer money back then.
Yeah. It sounds like at the first part of college that you needed a lot of it.
That's how it was.
So you did that through college, and so let's transition to right after college. As long as we haven't left anything out, what did it look like right after college?
So, I guess we all have somebody that we look after in the horse business. And like I said, I had my horse show dad. It was my first start in my life to putting him up there as I want to be a horse trainer and I want to be a trainer as good as him. And so my other, what's the word for who you look up for?
Mentor?
My other mentor was Mark Chestnut. And Mark Chestnut was living in McPherson. Well, let's go back. He was in Rose Hill, Kansas, and cutting horse trainer, all around horse trainer. And it was a calf roper. A lot of people don't know that. So when I was really young, if I couldn't go to Chet, I would go to Mark Chestnut, and he was teaching me how to rope calves. And so I rode with him through my beginning teen years too, because he was kind of closer. So I would go to him and then took lessons, I'd say, because I wanted to break away calves, and that's kind of where my roping started. Well, when I got out of college, in your college program at Lamar, it's like all the horse-related colleges, your last part you do internship. Mm-hmm. And so Mark, by then, had moved to McPherson, Kansas, and lived right next to the Maxwell Game Preserve up there. So I called Mark and said, "Hey, Mark, I've got to do 6-week internship program. Can I come do it with you?" Oh, he said, "Yeah. I got a bunkhouse, and there's a refrigerator full of beef and a bed there, and you'll get all the work you want to do and whatever." So I got out of there and headed to Mark's and showed up there and got my stuff in the bunkhouse, and which was a horse or it's just a camper trailer, a mobile home out there, and there was, I think, 3 or 4 of us living there. And at that time, the trainers that were young up and coming trainers, there was Brent Lowski. And trying to think, the other guy was a roper, was there working for Mark, and showed up, and you had to clean. So we got up in the morning, we cleaned. He said us that we all had 10 stalls to clean. So that was the first thing. There was 3, I think there was 30 or 40 stalls there. And so we'd get up every morning, we'd clean our 10 stalls first thing, and then we'd bring in the colt deal was the first thing, and bring in the remuda, basically what it was. So there was pens out back of the barn, and Mark really had this barn set up really neat. It was a big, long indoor arena with rope and pins at one end, and then so on the outside there was all these great big pipe pins, and there was, like, you keep cattle or horses in it. Well, he had gildings, like 10 head of gildings, like 5 head of gilds or 10 head of gildings in each pen. There might have been 20 gildings there. And we would run in 10 head at a time and run them through the alleyways out of them pens into the indoor. And then we all saddled a saddle horse in the morning. And so we'd get on that saddle horse, and we had to ride and rope our 5 head of horses out of the remuda in the indoor, and we drug them into the round pen, which the round pen was connected to the indoor. And so we drug them in there, and this is where I learned my colt program, was from Mark, that how we did it. We roped them, we drug them into the round pen, and then we 3-way hobbled them and sacked them out, and then we got on them bareback with the 3-way hobbles on and crawled around on them and slid our bodies over on and off, and then we got to saddle them. And then we took the 3-way, we put a side pull on them, and then we took the 3-way hobbles off and kicked them off and let them run around there, and we could lope them or move them around there and step in front of them, make them turn away. And we'd do that where we gained control, and then we made them come to the inside. And when we gained control there, then we gathered them back up and pulled their heads around on the ground and got on and off out of the stirrup, and basically we got on them. When you could pull them left and right from the ground and then got on them, you could pull them left and right. Then you just let them go off and didn't touch them.
Yeah, side pull, right?
Side pull. Yep, side pull. And then you let them do whatever they wanted to do. And hopefully they would just take off or trot around, go around that round pen. And then when they got relaxed, and you kind of had, and you didn't touch them up to the point you were ready to turn and go to the right. So you timed it. You needed to time it right, because you always wanted to get that first couple turns very correct.
Yeah.
And you'd pull them into the fence, and they would take off and go the other direction. And them things would just go, and you just held on the saddle horn and didn't touch those reins. And they take a while to learn not to touch reins when one's running pretty fast around there. But the first time you pull on it and then they go to bucking, you learn really quick, because you usually got your butt bucked off if you pulled on them. And that was just the hard deal to learn. But after I learned that, that's how we started every one of them. Well, you got left, right, turn, and kind of gained control and kind of got a hee-haw stop on them and stuff. And usually by the second or third day, Mark would throw the gate open, and that gate went into 160 acres.
Okay. And
we usually got about three rides on them in the round pen like that, and then opened the gate up, and we just went to the passions. And you didn't if they talked about a lope, when you opened that gate up and they loped that 160 acres of the back fence, you didn't touch them.
You just go with them.
Just go with them, and you never got bucked off as long as you didn't pull on them. But sometimes you pull on them, and you better get ready. After a few days, we were walk, trot, and loping them things around the pastures, and they just got really quiet. And that's kind of where we.
I find that real common. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. I've heard on other podcasts people and that was in what year? What year?
So that would have been. So I graduated from high school in 81. So I was like 84, 85, kind of that, because I went to school for like 3.5 years. So, around 84, 85.
Yeah.
And so we did that in the mornings. We all had to get all our clean stalls, ride our young stock, and then meanwhile while we were doing all that, we were saddling horses for Mark too. So he was like, we had a set of horses ready for him we usually cut in the mornings. So we'd get cattle in after we kind of got our saddle horses done and stuff. And we'd have his horses saddled and ready and cattle in or the flag set up, because the flag was back then was a flag. Our flag was a bicycle on both sides.
I've had one.
One of us was sitting on the fence and Mark was working. And so we did that. And then that was always the morning, and then Mark would go in and eat lunch, and we'd grab a quick bite, and then we'd start saddling the rope horses. And we'd saddle all the rope horses, and then we'd rope in the afternoons. And then we all had to clean our stalls, and then Saturdays we worked till noon. And some Saturday morning, the tack room had to be cleaned. I think it was Saturday afternoon, so every Saturday afternoon before we were done, we had to go through about 150 bridles and wipe them all down and make sure all the pads everything was hung correctly. I still hang my bridles the same way Mark taught me. And Mark, as a young person, taught me humility. I learned that from him. And you can be pretty cocky when you're 18. And after that, I wasn't. He taught me how, and all of us are a little OCD when it comes to horse. If you're a good horse trainer, you're a little OCD and a little controlling. All that goes with a good horse trainer. And but I still hang my bridles. I still usually do a cleaning on the weekends, and it just stuck with me my whole life. And that after that, and usually we got Sundays off. And Mark usually went and worked. Mark was really good friends with Dean Smith, and sometimes on the weekend he'd hook up his inline, and we had to have a saddle horse ready for him, and the right bridle and the right saddle, and we'd put it in the trailer and had it ready so he could pull out, and he'd go ride with Dean or go cut somewhere or something. And I remember one time I put the wrong bridle in it, and I got chewed out. He said, "Why in the heck would you put rope and reins on my for my go work cattle?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't sure. You said you were going to go work cattle." "Well, by God, if I'm going to go to the pasture and rope one, I want split reins. I don't want, if I'm going to go ride a cutter, I want split reins." I learned something really quick. I was just a young horse trainer, but he let me know that he was embarrassed the whole day, and that wasn't good.
That's funny. Yeah. So how long were you there at Mark's?
Oh, I think I was there about 4 months.
Okay.
It was an internship, and I really didn't. I kind of had some stuff going, and I always said I had to ride to make a living, and I couldn't have time to go work for somebody, which I look back at sometimes and said I should have went and starved a little bit longer.
That I agree with myself too, and it was trial by fire.
Yeah.
A lot of bologna and cheese sandwiches, and no insurance.
Yeah.
And that makes you a little bit better because you're on the colt starting, because you're taking everything. You don't get good ones.
No.
In the beginning, we talked about that yesterday. You get whatever they dump off.
Exactly.
And I oftentimes look at the fact that one of the downsides I might see to some, because I've seen this happen a few times. If you go to a really, really good barn, we mentioned it, you go to a top trainer and they have really nice horses. So you get used to starting those really nice colts.
Yeah.
And then after 4 or 5 years, you go out on your own, and there's still going to be a struggle bus.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be nice colts. And if you didn't learn on some kind of some, gunsels, you're like, well, why aren't they getting it? I said, well, the fourth time he didn't slide a foot. These don't do that.
Yeah.
And it gets pretty tough and humbling.
Yeah, and after I thought, so we had really good conversations yesterday, and trainer conversations, and it's always fun to look at that stuff. And you're saying, you kind of get branded on what you do in this horse industry if you're not careful, and it's true. And well, so I worked for Mark, and I got to know a lot of people, and I didn't. When I walked away from it, I just, because I needed to get home and get something started. Well, Mark wrote a lot of, he was in the area up there where Jackie B was at McPherson, Kansas. And he guy that owned Jackie B, I was trying to think of his name. He brought a lot of Jackie B horses up there. I mean, that was we rode everything at Mark's. I mean, Mark had a lot of ranch horses come from all over, and that's what the help rode. We broke colts and stuff. Well, Mark probably, he didn't have enough help, and at the time after I left, and he called me one day and said that such and such, one of his customers there, had a pasture full of Jackie B colts. Well, at that time period that I was there was when the cattle market had crashed, and a lot of the ranchers didn't have money to send these horses out to get broke, so their pastures were full, and they were breeders, and they had 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds pastures of these Jackie B's, and this one customer, and Mark called me and said, well, I got a gig. I don't know if you're going to like it or not, but, you enter into it what you want. And I, well, I'm starving. I was like, so I made a deal, and they brought trailer load 5 head every time. And they were good people, and they were ranchers. And so they were all Jackie B bred somewhat. And, well, I guess they were all by Jackie B. What mares they were out, I can't remember. But, and the guy pulled in with the first set, and they were all 5-year-olds. Not even barely halter broke. And he said, Fred, you try to start, and I'm telling you, you just go through them all. The bad ones, just stick in a pen. You say, if you don't think you can get them broken, ain't worth time, don't take time. Just take time on the good ones, which was great. So I waded through all of them, and you might find one, might not find none. Well, I got through about 4 trailer loads of them 5-year-olds. And I got a couple nice ones out. The rest of them he just picked up and hauled off. Well, then we got through all the 5-year-olds, we got into the 4-year-olds. And so on down till it got a little easier when we got to the 2-year-olds. But
more
it was
impressionable.
If anybody, not to knock Jackie B's, but I had a lot of them that made great rope horses. And once you got them broke, my God, they were just as good. I had a lot of them went on to be shown at the World Show. I didn't get to show them. I was a young trainer, and I wasn't really a horse show roper, and I know Billy Allen had a couple of them after I trained them or got them where they were roping, and Billy took them and showed them, he's an unbelievable hand, but they went on to be really good horses. And so that was my career. And like you were saying, then I just kept getting more and more. It took me a lot of years to get away from the Jackie B's, because that really wasn't what I wanted to. At that time it was working because I was roping quite a bit, but I was riding some pleasure horses on the side, which I don't know how I got pegged with some 2-year-old. I showed some 2-year-old Western pleasure horses, and I got stuck in that mode. And finally, I made changes, and then tried to went a different direction. So,
yeah, but that taught you a lot, And had you not had to start at Chestnuts, that might have been a little bit harder. I mean, the Jackie B horses, that taught you a lot how to get by those rough horses, because. We can take for granted we get good horses, and we're just like, we train that dude. We said, we're a horse trainer. Got it.
Yeah.
Then we get one of the normal ones.
Yeah.
And then we have bad.
Yeah.
That need a lot of our help.
Yeah.
They need a lot of our help. But I've ridden some of those too, and I've ridden some that's pretty good. That and Goldfingers, some Jackie B and Goldfingers. I've ridden, and like I told you yesterday, when I trained for the public, there was more Hancocks come through my barn than anything.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people had a lot of trouble with them, but I had some rough start, But they ended up making forever horses for some people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, pretty good. But they're not what I'm after now because I'm looking to go down the show pen more as you.
Yeah.
And there's a place for all those horses, and you'll find some freaks of nature every once in a while.
They're good in all of them. I mean, they're like I said. I had a lot of good Jackie B's. I mean, grays and blacks, and I mean, you could go run 30 head in the roping pen on them, and boy, they'd be the same way every time. But it took, and like the Hancocks too. I had some of them coming in from Western Kansas, same period of time, and I had some I only rode for 90 days, and you could do whatever you wanted on them in 90 days. I mean, ranch.
Might be a little heavier footed.
Yeah.
But they were functional.
And I'd grab that thing, go to the pasture any day I wanted. And I only had 90 days on it. I could tie a cow down on it, trip one in 90 days. I don't know how many horses this day and age I can ride 90 days and be doing that on them, But then I could have a full brother of that same horse and a buck for 30 days. I never could figure that out.
Yeah. So we've got you all the way to working for Mark for 4 months, you said, and then you're out here, you're riding these Jackie B horses. So how does it look after that? Where do we go from there? And how do you kind of get from there to reiners?
So that takes a big twist.
Okay.
So I get married and trying to make a living and living in Wichita and riding whatever I can and roping a bunch. And but at that time we didn't have the number ropings and stuff, and the horse showing was horse showing. And we had good numbers in the horse show world at Wichita. I mean, we would have 6 10-point ropings at every roping we had at the Coliseum. And so I did that for quite a while, and I rode a few pleasure horses, and I was stalling at a barn there on the east side of Wichita, not far from Ray Logan and Sonny Thompson and all the horse traders in the country. And it was just right. I was at Cal Cover's place and just riding. I kept a nice little barn horses, and I was doing everything myself and shoeing my own and riding my own and roping and not really showing that much. And then I got a phone call from Chet, my horse show dad, and said, "Here, I'm going to send you a business card. There's people over in Germany that's needing a horse trainer to come over and ride their horses," and actually had apps. And I was like, So I'd went through a divorce, and I was needing a change. So I put all my stuff in storage and locked things down. And so I was going to go over for 2 weeks and try it out. And I went over to Germany and went to work for a Desero family over there. And she was German and he was French Canadian. And I rode and showed apps for them over there in Germany. And I went for 2 weeks and ended up spending about 2 years with them. And so that kind of got me into the foot door of Germany. And so that deal kind of fizzled out and had really good success over there. We shipped horses. They shipped horses out of South Dakota, which were really foundation type apps. And then they had some modern day bred apps that they had bought. And I'd kind of had helped them buy a couple. And I had some really nice show horses. I showed them in everything over there, the reining, the trail, and the app deal. And it was growing. And I mean, we had all the American judges would come over, which was kind of neat because like all the app judges like Sandy Jakowski or Campbell, she would come over, Jim. God, there was a lot of so I got to see them and that was fun. And then, I kind of transitioned out of that and moved to Schwartzwald, which is a Black Forest. And there was a Canadian gal down there that had a barn, and she was her German husband, and I stayed with them for a while on a transition, kind of helped them get a barn started and kind of helped ride some of their horses and lived with them for a while and did that for about a year. And then Billy Allen's boy, Doug Allen, I knew him, and he was married to Francesca Sternberg. They're from England. And Roseanne and Francesca and Doug had a barn in Nuremberg. And I talked to them, and they kind of Doug kind of needed some help. And I said, well, I'll just come up and ride for you guys. And you let me have a couple stalls, and I'll help whatever I can with you guys and have a couple stalls. And so I went to training out of there and riding underneath Doug and helping him out. And then they would leave and go back to England or come to the States. And I kind of helped manage the barn there and, kept things rolling while they were gone if they had horses there, and showed with them and hung out with them for a couple of years. and then an outfit from Usher, Germany, which was kind of a southeast, north of Munich. Guy needed a trainer, and he was building a barn, and he didn't know what to do. It was a German guy, and he was wanting to stock his barn with horses, and he asked me if I'd come to work for him and kind of manage and kind of get the horse program going and then show everything. So I told Doug, and we all left on good terms, and he kind of understood, and been still great friends with Roseanne and Francesca, which was really neat because we had a lot of good times with them, and they were big significant people in the horse industry in Europe and in the United States today too. And so I went down there and got their program and flew over to the States, and we bought horses and shipped them, got into the shipping deal, and got them a 30-stall barn built indoor and helped them kind of design everything, get a horse program going, a breeding program. And we bought a Zippo Pine Bar son, and I showed him in the pleasure over there, and I put like 100 AQHA Western pleasure points on him, was in the top 10 in the world, and I only showed him in Europe. Mm-hmm. It was really cool. We bought him off of Ray Logan there in Keachai. And then we bought some reiners, and so everything there. When I was there, I showed trail horse. I had national champion, we had a trail horse that won a bunch over there. We had some reiners that we'd bought, reiner cow horses that we bought over here and took over there and trained and showed them. And so I was really getting more trending toward the reining while I was over there. Well, when I was over there, I got to hang out with some of the best reiners in the industry because Dwayne Latimer, where it was in Italy. There was just all kinds of these young up-and-coming trainers that were over there. So I was getting to hang out with them more on a personal basis at the horse shows and stuff, and then all the AQHA and NRHA judges and diplomats from the United States. So it was a little easier for a younger trainer to get in on what was going on and get to ride with a lot of the up-and-coming trainers. And Jody Brainerd come over there, Tim came over, and a lot of the cutters and cow horse guys were coming over. And, you'd go to a horse show, and it was like a big reunion because those guys that were training over in Europe, we didn't have a lot of contact a lot of times. So we get there and get to hang out and ride with all these guys on a regular basis. Like Barry Bader was over there, is a good reining cow horse trainer that's underrated. He lives out in Colorado. I got to meet him, and we've been longtime friends since that. And a lot of guys that were over there. It was really neat.
So how long was your stint over there?
About 9 years.
9 years, my goodness. And your last name's Berschauer, so
it's German.
Yeah. What's the coincidence?
So my grandparents came from Prussia, which was German and Austrian.
Okay.
So and they migrated.
That's funny.
Migrated over to the United States and lived in western Kansas. And were wheat farmers.
Yeah.
And they moved to Canada. And my dad was actually born in Canada.
Okay.
They lived there for a year, and they didn't like it, and they moved back. So my dad actually had dual citizenship. He was a Canadian, was born and lived 1 year in Canada, but his parents were American in the sense is they had their American papers, yet they were immigrants. So he had the United States and Canadian heritage. So
you're there 9 years. And so you got to ride with a lot of good hands over there and kind of be around some of the up-and-comers as Latimer and such. So that all ended and you ended up back here. Where did you land when you came back?
Yeah, so, I ended up, I guess I probably would have stayed longer, but my dad passed away. I was stuck at a horse show in Aachen, Germany, which was the European Championship. I think I had 10 head of horses. Couldn't get away. I mean, we had thousands of dollars invested in that horse show. And they held the funeral off till as long as they could. And there's just no way I could get out of Germany without, it was just uncircumcised stuff. So that really messed with me bad. Had a great show, won the European Championship 3-year-old deal. So I got back from there, and then I started making arrangements to move back to the United States. So I got all my clients together and got them set up with. I had a trainer, a young trainer, come and help me. I got hurt there the last couple of years. I had a back injury, and I was down for a couple months, and I hired a kid he was from Germany. Well, I go back to when I lived in Schwarzwald, Lauren Ketterer and Occam. This was Laura's nephew from Canada, and he was helping them out. Well, he come up and helped me, and his name was Maury Fisk. And Maury kind of worked for me for a couple of years, and now he's still a trainer and one of the best trainers. He's won a lot of the reining fraternities and stuff in Europe. Now I'm still a trainer over in Switzerland, I think, where he's at now. And so I kind of made arrangements, got all the horse. He took a lot of my clients, and then I packed up and I moved back to the United States. And I ended up in Lewisburg, Kansas.
Okay.
And I went to work for Coran Farms, which they had some reining horses. Uh-huh. And they had a manager, and I was just their kind of resident trainer, and I started a lot of colts and started showing the reining. And Brent, and that's when I met Brent Wright. And
yes.
So I was riding for them, and I was living there. It was a nice kind of starter job back in the States. And then I was going over trying to ride with Brent as much as I can, and just he was a big influence in my career. A great guy to have in your back pocket to go ride with, and he was 30 minutes away. And then so I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of was like, it was a point that I needed to go out on my own. Mm-hmm. And so I built a place down outside of Butler, Missouri, hot water corner, kind of on the Kansas-Missouri line. And we built a barn and started off with 14 stalls and no indoor, and rode outside, and then hauled to indoor in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. Did 5 horses in the morning and come home, ate lunch, and did 5 horses in the afternoon when the weather was bad. And did that for about 3 or 4 years and got enough money together to build a little indoor. And we built a 90 by 130 indoor, and had a little rope and pin, and was just riding reiners then. I kind of transitioned. That was basically all I was riding reiner, and then kind of got a non-pro following and showing, and specialized in the fraternity horses. So I was riding a lot of 3-year-olds, and that was kind of I wanted to do the reining fraternity. And I was keeping a few of my own, and I was getting customers' horses. So it was a lot of fun. So that was what was my next journey in life, and was really pretty successful with the 3-year-old deals. I had, multi-fraternity finalists and Derby finalists there for quite a few years. Mm-hmm.
And so you were in Lewisburg, and you were in Lewisburg up until the point where you're at now. Is that correct? But you went Lewisburg to Butler.
So from Butler, so Lewisburg I was there, and then I went to Butler. Mm-hmm. And I was down there. We were down there 7 years. And then I kind of outgrew that deal, and I was looking for a different venue. And so I had a couple guys approach me about building a barn and having me come ride out of their barns. Well, I'd learned enough at that point. Sometimes you just got to be cautious when you do that. Very, very cautious. I had a lot of people come and ask me about, should they do that or not? That's a scary question. It can work and it can be a nightmare.
I agree.
And I always say, if you can do it on your own, do it on your own. But there are good people out there in the world, and I happened to be so lucky to get in with Joe Eby, and he was they're just good. Was just good people, and so Joe was kind of like, he had bought some rope horses off of me, and he was wanting to learn the rope. Him and his brother, and I started using him for kind of an advisor because he was a very up-and-coming businessman in Kansas City, and I'd always call for advice because I'm a horse trainer, and he was very knowledgeable on financing and stuff like that. And I called him one day. I said, Joe, I got a guy kind of wanting to hire me he wants to build a barn, wants me to help him get it going and everything. I said, can you check him out? 'Cause I didn't know. And so Joe pulled some strings and did some favors, and I had 2 or 3 people at the time doing the same thing, and I kept going to Joe, and Joe was like, okay, whatever you need, Fred, we'll get her checked out. And one day, after some time, he didn't hear from me, and I hadn't heard from him anymore, and he called me up one day and said, Fred, well, I'm just curious, did any of that stuff work out for you? And I said, no. I said, I was a little cautious on everything. He says, well, if the smoke cleared down and everything's settled and you're kind of back to your deal. I said, yeah. He says, well, what if I would do that for you?
Yeah.
We did it together, and I said, we'd just start tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I know we were a good working relationship and friendship too. And friendship and working relationship is not two good things most of the time. I mean, you usually don't want to keep that wall. But this deal was, he wanted a place to learn to rope and ride, and I wanted a place to train. So it was a good combination. He wasn't going to be in the horse show deal. He just wanted me to be there if he wanted somebody to rope head for him or heel for him or help his kids with a lesson. I could do it. And I said, yeah, we'll do it. And it was a good relationship. So we built the barn and built me an apartment in the barn and 20 stalls and indoor arena and outdoor pen, and we did everything up right. And it was just great.
This was Lewisburg, right?
This was in Lewisburg,
Yeah.
south of Metcalf. And we did that for about 7 years. And his dad got into it. His dad was fascinated with it. So we bought a string of brood mares, and we set up they had a ranch in Emporia, a cattle ranch. So we set up a breeding operation down there. And we were raising babies and training them up and sell them and show them. And we had a great stretch. It was a lot of fun there for about 7 years. And then Don, his dad, got cancer, and we had a meeting one day, and we kind of just had to liquidate the breeding part of it, which was understandable. And then Don, he kept 10 head of horses and training all the time because that's what we were raising. And it was a big part of my business. And they were such good people. We sold everything. And now Don said, you keep about 10 of them. We'll just keep training and we'll sell them. And, you just keep your business going. And I said, this was a burden on you too. And they were just so good to me. Well, and I could keep that barn full. I mean, I sold about everything down to a couple show horses, and Don passed away. And then his wife had 1 or 2 horses that she wanted me to keep showing for them, which was great. And then I sold them, and they kind of were just totally out of it. But me and Joe, we just rolled on the same. And then things kind of changed there, and their life direction kind of changed and wanted to move back to the city and stuff. And I said, yeah, no problem. I said, I know a place in Springfield, Missouri that I'd kind of like to go for and be kind of closer to the fly fishing. So.
Oh, you're a fly fisherman?
Oh, big time fly
Really?
fishing. Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother realm of my.
Did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to go out. I go out west. I mean, I've fished about all the waters out in Wyoming, Montana, and Utah, and Arkansas. And
Did not know that.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'm sure you've been down to my little stream down at Roaring River at some point in time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're just right on top of the hill from it.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah.
So you ended up back in Springfield, where you're at now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah. I moved down there. I guess now we're right at 11 years.
11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not very far. I think you're about an hour and 20 minutes from me, somewhere around there. So, something like that. So, and now you mostly, I know you go to the ARHA shows, because we go there a lot with you.
Yep.
And quarter horse shows.
Yep.
Around. And so what's it look like now? I mean, I know we've talked to, we don't, either one of us keep a lot of numbers anymore.
No.
And stuff like that. So what's it look like now at your barn? I mean, you and Darcy are there, and so what's all that look like?
Yeah, I think we're rolling along good. I was like, I ever since this COVID hit, I mean, it was kind of before COVID. I was kind of coasting along and kind of doing my leather deal and trying to develop that, because I do have a custom leather shop on the side.
Yes.
And I had got down to about 6 or 7 horses. I was enjoying life and just doing reiners mainly at that point. And then I had a client come in about the same time COVID hit and wanted me to get into the ranch riding stuff. And I said, I've cowboyed my whole life. I've done Western pleasure. I've showed Western riders. I've showed trail horses. I can lead a halter horse. I won showmanship. I mean, I have aspects of all, tie down roping. Am I a master of any? I'm probably not, but I'm decent in all the events, and then I've specialized in the reiner for so long, but my program's always been around a good broke horse. It doesn't matter what they said. The basics of a horse training program is that the basics have to be good, and then you can go what direction you want with them. And so I trended towards that when that client came to me. I said, well, let's give it a whirl. So I was just entered into it with not knowing. It took, getting accepted into a different discipline and knowing, what levels you have to be at and getting tuned back up to be able to do all those classes back to back on one horse. And that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a lot, but that's me. That's just I could have 5 horses and do that. Well, then, I started off with a couple, and if you don't know the all around, you don't train one of those in 6 months or 10 months or 18 months. You're getting close. But so I've kind of over the last 5 years have developed a program that works for me that I just add different classes as I go, and then usually in about 2 years, I'm showing them in 9 classes and pretty competitive in every one of them. But like I said, it takes the individual, and you got to get luck or have a customer let you hopefully pick that one out that you think might do it. And it's a 50-50 chance, because I went through a lot that didn't make it, and I've had pretty good luck with the ones I've showed that you can actually, they have their higher points and their, average points, but you can go be competitive in every one. And that just fascinates me. I love the rope. I love to do the cow stuff. I love the rein. And I don't mind riding a good pleasure horse, but he better be good-legged. I'm not going to show every one on the rail, but I get as much thrill out of draping one rein and letting him crack a hawk down through there. I get as much thrill as doing that on a reiner. I just like a good horse.
Yeah.
And the trail, I said, I like anything. If the sucker can shinny through that trail, it's a big high to me if I can do that on him.
And it is hard to find that all around, because you have one that might be pretty, ask a lot of questions in the reining, and he's pretty submissive. Then you put him on a cow, and he don't have enough gumption to take a hold of that cow. Then you get the one that takes a hold of a cow, awesome, in the boxing or our ranch cutting that we do. Yeah. And then you go in the trail, and he's too looky. He's great if you have something in front of him.
Yeah.
And that, I think the ARHA, the ASHA, all the ranch horse shows, to me, ever since you mentioned COVID, it blew our world up.
It did.
It really increased it. And I think if it wasn't for the ranch horse shows, the horse show world would be in a world of hurt right now.
I totally agree.
In a lot of ways. And I don't know where it's going. I don't know if it's going to end up having its own large association, just like the NRHA or anything like that. But the ranch riding is, I think, still one of the biggest classes at the World Show, at the AKA Show. Yeah. And it's hard. Yeah. I heard a podcast of Bud Lyon talking about it, from when he got into it. Yeah. And he said to a lot of people, it looks really easy. And it's simple, but it's not. Well, and it's very hard to get smooth, good transitions and have a good look to it. It's all about that picture.
Yeah. No, I agree. I entered into training horses, and my mottos ever since I started way back when I was in Lamar, Colorado, is like, it's always been if I can't improve every day, and this is not a job to me, this is a lifestyle. Uh-huh. And I always want to improve and learn. And the day that I quit learning and improving is the day I quit. Mm-hmm. That's why. And, I think 5 years ago, right before COVID hit, I was kind of at that point. It was like, I'm not having fun. Mm-hmm. But it was that transition from, going from that Rainer fraternity program down to like a re-enjoyment to me. I mean, could I keep doing it? I always loved riding a Rainer, but it fascinates me to get to that point where I'm still learning every day. And it's like the cow work. I can do the cow work. Am I a finished cow horse trainer? No. I'm still having problems with my horses sliding past cows and stuff. But, it's an all new learning process. I'm 63 years old. People go, you're 63 years old still? Yeah. I said, and I ride 10 head of horses a day. And I said, I'm learning every day. And I said, I am fascinated with the cow work. I said, I can go out there and work 10 head of horses on cows all day, every day, because I love it, and I'm learning, and I'm getting better at it, and, rebuilding my program. And I was like, it's making everything flow together. Mm-hmm. It's just. And the cow program, to me, it's hard to communicate the difference in that and training a ranch rider and reiner. Because to me, the cow relationship
you develop between the horse and the cow. It's you adjust them, you pick them up, you show them where you want them to be, and then you leave them alone. And that's hard for a lot of people because you have to have connection first. And that is very tough.
Yes.
Versus you get in the rein and you don't want that horse making any decisions.
Yes.
And so, and it's polar opposites
Yes.
there.
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
all horse training,
Yes.
but it's just polar opposites. And that is a really, really tough deal
Yes.
when people come to work the flag.
Yes.
And says, listen, just get the connection first, and then you'll teach him how to turn later.
Yes.
Have them connected. And that's hard. And
Yes.
that's hard, you
Yeah.
know. And,
Yeah.
But I think it's a great thing. We have the boxing in the ARHA. We have the ranch cutting where you cut one, then you go pin it.
Yeah.
And that's tough for some people.
Oh.
They don't read a cow enough. One of the hardest things in the cows is getting someone to read a cow.
Exactly.
And I still am threatening to do this, and I don't have one, but I'm buying a stick horse. And I have really gentle cattle, and I'll call out. They all have number tags,
Yeah.
and I normally have Coriani or Brahma crosses, but they get calmed down. I said until you can go out there on foot, and we put them in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you cut one out yourself.
Yeah.
Then you don't get to do it on the horse.
Yeah.
Because if you can't do it telling your body where to move and where to be, then the chances you doing it on your horse, which are probably not broke the best in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. That's neat. I'm glad that's be interesting.
But I learned to work them on foot because, there's times I'd worked at the sale barn growing up, working gates. You'll learn really quick where to be on cows, or you'll get ran over or kicked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
And how to get in those cows' eyes and behind the drive line and all that.
Yeah.
But I think the ranch horse stuff has really saved us. I think, I'd say tomorrow here, the biggest classes will be the ranch riding.
Yeah.
That's what I predict. Ranch riding, ranch trail.
Yeah. And the rail, the rail is just
big.
That's a whole nother realm.
It is.
And that's really a good interim level now that they have that. It kind of started off back. You'd think the ranch rail would be one of the first classes that they have in the ranch horses because it'd be interim level, I think. But still got to be, there's still like a certain level of excellency to get there. But, it's just.
And talk about picture.
Oh.
You have to stand out.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to start with a good individual that stands out.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get looks in there on that and get smooth transitions.
Yeah.
I don't like judging it when I have to judge the rail class. It's just so much to look at.
Oh, yeah.
If you catch a nice horse breaking gait, you've got to put him at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it can get really tough to judge.
Yeah, you got to. And the thing is just you can't let them horses go forever. When you're judging, you got to take a quick look and make your decision like that.
Yeah.
Because they're going to only go around there so long.
And they will make us go extra sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been down here before, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't know how many laps I extended lope. That's a big pin.
It is.
And I was about out of horse. I'm like, this thing's going to start falling out of lead.
Yeah. I like when they get hung in a long trot and like, God, come on, let me out of it. I think I was at a world show, RHA World Show, and in the middle of the summer in CBRC, and it's 100 degrees in an arena, and we're long trotting. I'm about done, guys. I can't trot any longer.
Yeah. So, do you have any kids?
I don't.
No kids.
No, never been blessed.
No kids. Yeah. And I was going to ask something for you to tell us about that people didn't know, but obviously fly fishing.
Yes,
I had no idea.
And I like horse trainers. It's just, I say we're OCD and it's like over compulsive. It's like, and I am really, I've very got an over compulsive personality in the sense is if I get into something, it's all in. And so I got into fly fishing when I moved back from Europe, and I wasn't ever really much. As I got older, I've got where I like to ride with other trainers and learn. When coming up, I was like a fence watcher, and I'd go home and try it and stuff, kind of self-learned and hung on the fence. So, well, fly fishing was the same deal. I watched a lot of people and didn't take any lessons and just kind of entered in. And I started off with a cheap rod and reel and going down to Taneycoma or the trout park, started out trout park. And I come back and I didn't catch a fish. I went 5 or 6 times. I'm going, why not? What's so good about this trout fishing? But I was fascinated with the fly rod, and And I always took a spinning rod along, and I always like converted to the spinning rod because I could catch something on it. But the fly rod, I kept coming back to it. So, fine, I can still remember the first day I caught the first trout on a fly rod down on Taneycomo and on a pheasant tail nymph. And I don't know why I caught it, but I caught it, and I've been downhill ever since.
You were hooked.
I was hooked. And it's went to the point I went from the $100 rod to the $1,000 rod, and not one of them, but a couple of them. And I mean, it's been over years, but it's the difference between a Volkswagen and a Mercedes. I said, like, when you get into them high, it just makes it so much easier. And fly fishing is so technical. Is like the line and the tying, and it's like I said, over compulsive. I love a challenge, and the fly rod and the simplicity of being out in the middle of nowhere, staring at the water in Wyoming at a strike indicator, and the bliss that everything's away.
Yeah.
It's just takes my soul away.
Yeah.
That I can just relax.
Yeah. It's your happy place. And you come back.
You're just cleansed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel. I got into archery hunting out west.
Yeah.
And, it's not the killing.
No.
But putting a 40-pound pack on your back, and you've got everything. Yeah. You can survive with water filter, everything on your back, enough food for 5 days.
Yeah.
And you just take off at high elevation.
Yeah.
And, you see bears and hopefully elk and mule deer and grouse and everything else. It's the simplicity, and there's not a lot to think about, but the things you do think about, they're pretty important.
Exactly.
Like you got to stay hydrated, and you got to have food and shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and shelter more than food.
Yeah.
And I come back, and my wife will say, man, you might want to go more often. She said, why don't you just go back? Because you come back a whole new person.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. We get back, and normally it lasts a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then we let I call it the white noise of the world get into us and all that. And all that stuff's good, and I love technology. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now.
Yeah.
We didn't have those 30 years ago.
No.
And I really like it, but it does bring a lot of white noise into our life. And when we get the simplicity of, I love being in the mountains and out west, as you do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if I went out there and didn't do anything but just to hike, I would be happy.
Yeah, and that's what kind of where we do that too. I mean, Darcy's really, my partners, me are really into hiking. I mean, we go back in the Bighorns. I mean, we hiked. Last hike we did out there was 4 hours in, and we pack. And it's day hikes, but it's a whole day. I mean, we pack up 4 hours straight back in the wilderness, and I pack my fly rod, and we're fly fishing little streams as we're going up in there, catching little bitty brookies, and just in awe, because we got moose around us. We're back in the back country. And
what about the G-bears?
And the bears.
Are you ever in grizzly bear country?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We've seen them at a distance, so we haven't come. I mean, them moose are about as dangerous as them damn bears, because you can get a lot. We've walked along a trail and looked over and want to be standing there covered up in the bush, and you're only 25 feet away, and you're going, hope there's not a calf around or something. I mean, you've got and I think me and Darcy are very tuned to our surroundings and stuff, even in the domestic life that we live this day and age. But even when we go out west, we're kind of trained to keep that in the back of our heads and stuff. And it's all a part of that thrill of going out there and being on the edge, and like you've experienced it and being out there. I mean, we got caught in a snowstorm. Rain dropped 30 degrees out in the mountains here a couple of years ago, and it was a little spooky. You're 4 hours back up in there, and and nobody around, and you're getting in a cave and getting up underneath and waiting until the storm blows over.
Yeah, and it normally blows over fairly fast out there.
Yeah, but if you haven't experienced it, it's a thrill. I mean, like, okay, a little challenge here today.
Yeah.
Are we going to have to stay overnight? Is this going to quit?
Yes.
I mean, it was like blowing ice, and you don't know how long it's going to last. And I mean,
it might be 80 the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we hiked back out of there. I mean, it was straight down. I think the elevation was, I think we were at 13.5 when we got up in there, and then we dropped back down to around 12.5 or 7 or 11.5. That's big elevation up there. And then to get up above timberline, it was back up in the middle of nowhere. It was an experience.
How long does it take you to acclimate out there? Because that's my biggest problem going out.
we usually go out and then we'll stay around 9 to 10 for a couple of days, and then we'll start hiking. Mm-hmm. But, we take breaks. I mean, we've got a good pace on us, but I haven't ever, luckily, not going to have any altitude sickness or anything. There was a couple of times I felt like I was going to go down, but been good so far.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of, it takes me about 3 days to get a little bit better. And I train, I'm very physically active. And as horse trainers, we have a little bit of physical, it can be rough.
Yeah. I mean, thing about us, I think we've got the advantage over a lot of people. I usually suffer a little bit in my lower part of my body because I don't walk that much, but Darcy keeps me hiking, and I think I do really well at 63 that I can go still do that. But my core, I mean, if you got a good core, that's the whole. Yep. I'm not athletic, I don't run or trog or anything like that, but I know if you keep a good core on you, everything else is easier. You can.
Yeah, the best thing for my back's riding.
Yeah.
Like if I don't ride for 2 or 3 days, my back's getting pretty sore, and I can get on a horse at a trot and sit a trot or post or something or lope, and it'll really help my back a lot.
Yeah.
And well, that's I didn't mean to get off on that rabbit trail. We can talk about that all the time. But it's interesting learning other things about people because people don't understand we have hobbies too.
Yeah.
And just like the people that pick up that fly fishing, I have some friends with that, and they're pretty particular on stuff, and they're a little OCD people too.
Yeah.
And with horses, we have to be like that because I think if you don't take pride in what you do and be a little bit particular, you can't hardly be in the horse business. There's too many things that have to be fairly particular, not only for presentation, but just for safety and to create a pretty picture.
Yeah, and you have to be regimented as a trainer. I always preach, if people around the barn are people that I'm coaching and or training for, I don't give a lot of lessons, but people in the barn, my first thing's safety. You take a lesson from me, it's all about safety. I just scares me to death.
It's a big animal.
It's a big animal, and I don't care. That most gentle animal that's your pet, it can hurt you as bad as you ever wanted to be
accidentally and not intentionally.
Exactly. And it's not his fault. It's just a lot of times it's just things that happen. You just always got to be on your toes. It's scary sometimes, but they're safe as long as you're safe. So.
Yeah. And there's an inherent danger that just comes with them that if you're in the business long enough, stuff happens. Horses fall. Yeah. You'll have something happen. And hey, if you ride enough of them, you're going to have one buck. Every once in a while, it's going to happen. You just get better at talking them out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And not avoiding it.
Exactly.
So you also have a tack line, and I've seen some of your tack. You've done really nice stuff. And you told me yesterday, and I sat in one of your saddles, you're building saddles now?
Yes.
Not that you're wanting to start full time with it.
Well, I just, kind of like I told you, I was like, it's just another journey to me. I guess I entered into the tack deal because I want to ride what I build. And I think I've always wanted to build saddles, and I've followed a couple saddle builders ever since I started getting into the leather. But it started off as this started off about 11 years ago that I got into the leather deal. I was just looking at what I was going to do when I was 70, and it kind of, I thought I need to get started on something, and I couldn't figure anything out I was going to be able to do besides fly fishing. And, I guide a little bit on the side, but, if people want me to, I take a few people, but I don't really want to do that. It takes my fun out of my pleasure. So I decided against being a guide and started doing the leather. Well, it kind of turned into, I use my own head stalls, my own reins. I was like, I need to build saddles. And I really I like some of the saddles that they build have changed, and I don't care for them. And I couldn't really find that saddle out there after I transitioned from the reining into the ranch horse world and the cow horse and the roping. And so I was going to build me design a saddle that I could do it all in and be comfortable. Well, then it got to the point where people asked me to build them, and I want to build saddles for people. And I will, but it's not going to be like I get it done when I get it done, Yeah. And I want guys to ride my saddle, so.
And you had a couple of Buster Welch setups, the ones I set in yesterday.
Yeah, so basically I'm building I build everything on a Buster Welch style tree. I am developing my own tree with the South Texas saddle tree builder that's going to build my signature tree when we're said and done. I'm using most of my saddles at this point are built on either his tree or I forgot, I'm drawing a blank, another builder. And so as that develops, because I'm trying to develop more the ranch cutter with a more of a solid rope horse bar in it.
Yeah, so you can steer stop in them.
Yeah, so you can steer stop. Or actually, I've got a couple of guys riding them right now that actually team rope.
Okay.
And I kind of modified that ranch cutter where I beef up the front end so it's more like a Stockman, the front end, so it's thicker, and then I put a roper bar under it, and then I can shorten that horn down. So actually end up a little bit with the Owen Young, but it's closer to cutter. So that's kind of how it's trending. What I've figured is that it's kind of like the Owen Young roper, because the Owen Young roper's got a little deeper seat in it, and where the TM or the regular team ropers are really flat. So,
yeah. So where do people find if they want to get? You have social media on your leather shop?
Yes, our shop, OUR shop. On Facebook.
Our shop.
Our shop.
Okay.
Yep.
Our shop on Facebook.
Yep.
And that will be your leather business.
Leather business.
And then what about your performance horses?
Fred Berschauer Performance Horses on Facebook.
Okay.
Yep.
And they can get all the information to contact you on there.
Yeah. And then I also have a knife company. If you guys need any handmade knives, I also have my own knife manufacturing company, which is Cowboy Cutlery.
Okay.
On Facebook.
Okay. Cowboy Cutlery on Facebook also. And, of course, you probably hand make the sheaths and everything for it.
And I have guys build the knives, all custom knives for me.
Okay. Man, you've got a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. And we also have embroidery and embroidery and laser business, too, on top of that. Darcy that handles all that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd say you're going to have plenty to do when you're 70 and 80. I don't think you're ever going to lack the stuff to do. And it's been good. I appreciate you sitting down here and talking with me. And I hope we do well tomorrow. Yeah. We start again tomorrow, the marathon. I think it'll be a pretty busy day tomorrow.
I got five runs tomorrow.
5 runs tomorrow, yeah. And I think I have 4 or 5 clients with 4 or 5 runs apiece.
Yeah. So we'll all be busy.
It'll be a marathon, but I do not have to show, so I'll be the show dad.
Yeah, there you go.
And preparing horses. Yeah. But I appreciate you sitting down with me. If you guys want to contact Fred, you guys can back up there, and I may put a link in the description on this, and you guys can check it out. But I appreciate you sitting down here with me, and I've learned a lot more about you that I didn't know, and I'm glad we didn't talk about that prior.
Yeah.
So that works good. But we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Jacob.